All right. I hope everybody is doing pretty good. Thank you for joining the session. I'll just go ahead and enable the public chat. If you guys can, please feel free. And I want you to please let me know if you're able to hear and see me all right. So just write down yes into the chat box if you're able to hear me and if you're able to see me all right here. Daniel, yes. All right. That sounds good. So we'll just go ahead and get started in a few moments. Let's wait for a few more members to join in a minute or so. And after that, we'll start the webinar, we'll begin the webinar, and then the people would keep joining as we move forward from here. What I want everybody to do, if you can, kindly let us know inside the chat box where you are joining us from and what do you do for a living. So where you're joining us from and what do you do for a living. It's always wonderful to know that where the people are joining from and what do they do. So if you can just go right there in the chat box, let us know about that, and then we'll just take a minute or two and then get started. All right, Jack, my brother, you're also here. Vusa, pretty good. So you were there in the last webinar as well, I remember. Great to have you back. Yeah, so if anybody of you guys can just keep writing down into the chat box. If any one of you was not there in the last webinar, we'll also send out the recording for that. Although I hope you guys should have received that if you registered for the previous webinar. But if you did not register for it, we'll try to send you the recording as well, because we talked about, me and Michael, some really important stuff in that webinar. And this webinar is going to be sort of a continuation of that. Not really, but in some sense, you can say that. And here we are going to be talking about those important points that I mentioned in the last webinar, that this and this is what we are going to be discussing and covering in the upcoming webinar next Wednesday. So it's going to be a really important webinar, and something that I feel when I was working on my speech was the most helpful for me. If I did not do that, what we would just talk about in the webinar, then I would not be here as a speech coach. I would not be here speaking like this. So these things were really important to do, not only from my own experience, but from the experience of working with so many clients all over the world. We know exactly what works for you and what are some of the most important things that you have to focus on no matter what. And in this session, we are going to talk about that. So stay here up till the end, because we are going to keep the floor open for any questions that you people might have. While I'm speaking, please feel free to keep writing down inside the chat box whatever you want to say. Maybe you have some comments, maybe you have some questions that you want to ask. Whatever it is, just keep writing them down inside the chat box. If it is related to what I'm speaking about in that moment, I'll answer that right there. Else, we'll get to most of the stuff towards the end. We'll save some time just to answer your questions right here. So whatever you might have in your mind, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that, whether it's related to what we are talking about or not, that's fine. You can ask whatever you want, like literally whatever you want, and we will do our best to answer that. All right. So that is what we are going to be focused on. So most of you people might already know me, but if anybody does not know me, let me make sure that no one is here who does not know me. So I've been working with Michael as a certified Pro90d speech coach now for the last 2.5 years. So when I came in as a client, and I used to struggle severely with my speech. I used to get stuck on almost every single word, forcing out words, being shy away from speaking situation, hiding away from them, fear of failure, fear of judgment, bullied by people because of my speech. So if you are there, if you are at that place, I know what it feels like to be there because I have been there. But I also know what it feels like to be right here, where I am right now. It's not that hard. You can do it. It's just a process that you have to follow. And once you keep doing some of the things on a daily basis, you eventually get to where you want it. And you don't only get to a place like we always talk about where you don't stutter, where you don't get stuck. You get to a place where you get to become an amazing and excellent speaker. The system is not just to help you not get stuck. In fact, that is not even our goal. Our goal is to help you become an amazing and excellent speaker. Because Michael says, the system says, if you're working on your speech, why to only work to not get stuck? Why not to work to become an excellent and amazing speaker, even above the average people and even above the average person right there? So that is something which is incredibly important. I say this to some of my clients, and they feel a bit weird about it when I say that, but that's really the truth. Stuttering, stammering is literally the best thing that has ever happened. Stuttering and stammering, let me say that again, is the best thing that has ever happened to me. And even the ones who have faced it, it is also the best thing that has happened for you because life has given us an amazing opportunity to work on our speech and become the speakers that we wouldn't have become otherwise if we had not struggled with our speech. Look at like this. Go out there and just let someone know that, hey, I'm working on my speech. They would be like, you're working on your speech? What's working on your speech? Most people, I would say 90 to 95% of the people don't work on their speech. They might not get stuck, they might not stutter, something like that, but they don't work on their speech. But because you have faced something like this, life has given you a gift. I see it as a gift that you just have to unpack and use it in the right way to take your speech forward and take your life forward to a place where you would never have thought. Right now, being at this place and helping a lot of clients all around the world, I say it, Michael says it, they say it, that it often feels like a big, black, heavy blanket is lifted off of your shoulders. You're no longer worried that I would get stuck on this, I would get stuck on that. How do I go up and speak to him? How do I go up and speak to her? What would he think of me? What would she think of me? Because now, guess what? You're enjoying speech, you're enjoying speaking situations. So, some of that stuff we are going to be talking about inside this session. In the last webinar, we talked about Wick and Rick, how focusing away from the fears. What were the fears? If someone was there, you can write down in the chat box. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, and fear of the fear to perform. Focusing your focus away from those fears and towards Vic and Rick. Value, relevancy, impact, clarity. We explained each one of those. We explained breathing and slowing down. We explained some other stuff right there, but I left some stuff in that session because I wanted to talk about that in this webinar. And that is a very, very important thing. We are going to be talking about something that we call modeling and something that we call airflow linking. Before that, let me go ahead and explain a bit about why you get stuck. Like, what's the reason that people get stuck. Before even I say that, I would like for you guys to write down in the chat box if you get stuck, if you have a hard time speaking. Not everybody right here might have that. If you get stuck, why do you think you get stuck? Like, what's the reason, a main reason generally that makes you get stuck? If you can just write down pretty shortly in the chat box. Daniel, you're on point, man. Someone else? Breathing problems, anticipations. Okay, what else? When tension is high, I stutter. Musa, speaking too fast. Amazing, amazing. Very good answers. Not pausing enough, speaking too fast. Jamal, yes, I get stuck and have a hard time saying my name when asked. Anticipation of food. So you guys pretty much know why we get stuck. So everybody is going to have a real fun time in this session. First of all, the most important reason why people get stuck, believe it or not, is because they are worried about getting stuck. They are anticipating getting stuck. They are worried about it. What if that happens? And that is the main reason why that happens to people. A point that I mentioned in the previous webinar as well, all of you, I'm sure, many of you, if not all of you, would have faced a situation where you were just speaking and you said a word in a flow, you said something in flow, and then after you finished speaking, you look back and saw that, how was I able to say that word? I have historically struggled saying that word. Wow, how was I able to say that word this time? Has that ever happened to you? I'm sure it has. The reason for that is because at that time you were not anticipating getting stuck for one reason or another. You were just flowing, your speech was flowing. You weren't anticipating for some reason that word. And because of that, you were able to say that word smoothly that time. What does this mean? It means that there is nothing physically wrong with you, with your tongue, with your mind, with your brain. There's not something physically wrong with it. It's just that when you start to worry about it, it happens more. Because if it was something that was physically wrong, then you would get stuck every single time. Some people say, I speak well or I speak fine when I'm speaking to my family, when I'm speaking to my friends, but the problem arises when I'm in high pressure speaking situations. Well, if you're able to speak well in low pressure, it means that you have the ability to speak well. It's just something going on at the back of your mind while you're right there in certain kinds of speaking situations that makes you get stuck. So the simple answer is this: the more you anticipate, the more you get stuck. Now, why did stuttering start at the very beginning? There's no right or wrong answer for it. For whatever reason, when you learned how to speak, when you were speaking, you got stuck on a word or two, and then you felt quite embarrassed after that. Maybe some people made fun of you, you did not know what to do about it, and then you start to worry about it. And when you worry about it more, it happens more. Then you worry about it more, it happens even more. Then you worry about it even more, it happens even more. So it becomes a cycle that people find it hard to get themselves out of. There is that constant worry, there is that constant anticipation that makes them get stuck. Remember one thing: everybody in this world gets stuck. I think I mentioned it in the last webinar last week as well. Nobody's speech is 100%. Go out there and speak to people. You would find that the people they are speaking and they would do something like this, and then they would just carry on with the flow. What happens to us is that because we have associated ourselves with stuttering from our childhood, or from a time in our life for one reason or another. When that happens, we become very alert. Oh, I got stuck again. And then you worry about it. What if it happens once again? What would he think of me? What would she think of me? What would my boss think of me? What if I get stuck again? What if I force out a word? People would think I'm a fool. And because of you constantly worrying about it, it happens more and more. And then you find it really, really hard to get yourself or to get your focus out of it. Now, the good news is that if you can take care of that worry, if you can take care of that anticipation, the words would take care of themselves. Let me say that again. If you take care of the worry and the anticipation, the words would take care of themselves. Some people say, I have a hard time saying this word. I have a hard time saying that word. I have a hard time saying my name, saying the name of my country, saying the name of a certain place. And they try to constantly practice saying that smoothly. But unfortunately, what they are doing is that they are trying to practice it over and over again, and they are trying to not get stuck on it. That is a major, major problem. Because just like we mentioned, the more you try to focus on not getting stuck, the more you might get stuck. Why? It's just because our minds work like that. Right now, I gave this example in the last webinar as well. Right now, if I say to you, don't focus on the image of a red car in your mind, don't focus on that. Don't ever focus on the image of a red car in your mind, especially not right now. Now, what you all were doing, you all were focusing on that image in your mind. What happens is that the moment we say to ourselves, don't do it, don't focus on it, our mind says, oh, we don't have to focus on a red car. What is a red car? And then it visualizes that red car. So by constantly trying to not focus on it, you are focusing on the red car. The more you're saying, don't focus on a red car, don't focus on a red car, don't focus on a red car, you're constantly focusing on that red car. Likewise, while you're speaking, if you constantly try to not get stuck, I hope I don't get stuck. I'm using this so that I don't get stuck. I'm using that so that I don't get stuck. That is a major, major problem because the constant focus is getting stuck, getting stuck, getting stuck. The mind says, what does getting stuck means? And then it starts to happen more and more. So we have to get the focus off of it. How do we get the focus off of it? We can't get the focus off of it by trying to not focus on it, just like we talked about. We can not focus on it by replacing that focus with something else so that we don't give ourselves, we don't give our mind a chance to constantly anticipate words and a chance to constantly worry about words and then get stuck on it. And how do you do that? We talked about some part of it in the recent webinar. I know I'm mentioning it a lot because we just did it last Wednesday. And then there is a lot of important stuff that we are going to be talking about right here in this session. Gusa, you wrote something. All right, why does excitement lead to getting stuck? Very, very good question. So please save it and we'll get to it towards the end because I'll need at least 2 to 4 minutes to go ahead and explain it. Now, anticipation of words, just like we were speaking about, you have to find a way to stop doing that. And the way you can do that is number one, by what we call air flow linking, free flow speaking, blending of words inside the Pro90d Speech System. So has any one of you heard of that? If so, go ahead and write yes into the chat box and let me know what do you think it means. What do I mean when I say blending of words? What do I mean when I say airflow linking? What do I mean when I say free flow speaking? Just whatever comes to your mind, you can go ahead and write down in the chat box. I'm sure you know that what it is, but we'll be going to explain it with regards to the context that we are talking about in this session. What does that mean? What do you think? Airflow linking. All right, I assume the terms are linked to smooth speaking. Marilla, speak with one breath and simultaneously blend the words, not pause. Very, very good. You guys can keep writing it down. While speaking, keep the flow of air constant, but it's very hard in the moment, I find. All right, makes a lot of sense. So, like everybody explained, blending of words, airflow linking simply means this one thing. Excuse me. Blending of words means to speak in a flow while you're speaking. Blending of words means to speak in a flow while you're speaking. Let me show that to you by an example. One way is that I can speak like this, and the other way is that I can speak like this. Now, what was the major difference between the two? The first time, I was mostly speaking word by word. My speech was very, very choppy. This is the one thing that most of the people do who struggle with their speech, because they are so used to anticipating almost every single word. They are so used to getting stuck on every single word. So they speak very choppy. In one go, they say one word, maximum two words, maybe three, and then they pause. Then they anticipate the next word, say that. Anticipate the next word, say that. So when you're not blending your words, when you're not airflow linking, you are giving your mind and brain a constant chance to get stuck. You're giving your mind a constant chance to constantly anticipate the words, worry about the words, and get stuck on them. On the other hand, if you are blending your words, and I'll explain that in more detail, the one major thing it is doing is that it is not allowing you to focus on the words by themselves. You are not allowing your mind to focus on every single word. Believe it or not, if you speak like this, it would be very hard to not anticipate the words, because your mind would be like, all right, I'm saying this word, then I'm saying this word, then I'm saying this word. Oh, I have historically struggled saying this word in the past. I might get stuck again. Oh, what if I get stuck? I hope I don't get stuck. And the moment you focus on it, the moment it starts to happen. So many people are mentioning that it is easy to do it by yourself, but hard with people in pressure. Don't worry, I'm going to explain every single thing. We're just moving from the basics. So, as I explained, blending of words means to glue your words together. Visualize it as just connecting and gluing the words together. Where one word ends, the second word begins immediately after. See that again. Where one word, where one, I'm not saying where one. Where one word ends, the second word begins immediately after. So when I'm speaking, and when I'm speaking like this, it means that I'm gluing my words together and the sound keeps going. Once again, when I'm speaking like this and I'm blending my words, it means that I'm gluing the words and the sound keeps going. I'm not allowing my mind to focus on every other word or every word after a few words, because see, it feels like I'm saying one long word. It feels like I'm saying one long word. It feels like I'm saying one long word. If you have to read something, or when we write down in English or in any language, but let's talk about English right here. How do we write something down? We write a word, and then there's a gap, then there's a word, gap, word, gap, word, gap. But when we speak, we don't speak like that, or we should not speak like that, because that would sound pretty weird, and you are giving yourself a chance to get stuck more and more by doing that. So if you start to read or speak like this, you just give yourself a chance to anticipate a lot of words. And just like we talked about at the start of the webinar, the more you are anticipating, the more you would worry. The more you would worry, the more you would get stuck. The more you would get stuck, the more you would worry more. The more you would worry more, the more you would get stuck. So it just becomes a constant loop. We do not have to allow our mind to do that. So, what we have to do is that we need to find a way to speak that, or in which we are not allowing, I'm using that word a lot, our mind to anticipate a lot of words. So, what I want you to do is start working on blending your words together while you're speaking. So, try to speak in longer phrases. And by longer phrases, once again, I don't mean that just keep going on and on and on and on while you're speaking and not breathing at all. I mean to say that start to speak in a bit longer phrases than you're used to. For example, if your one phrase is like this, try to make your one phrase like this, where you're speaking in a bit longer phrase. Then, wherever you feel like I need to breathe again, you just breathe again and do the same thing. Then, wherever you feel like I need to breathe again, you just breathe again and do the same thing. Speaking about breathing, breathing is extremely, extremely important. And that is why this is called airflow linking, because you need air in order to airflow link your words. If you don't breathe, it would be really hard to airflow link. It would be really hard to extend and blend. It would be really hard to even speak when you're not breathing as much as you should. So, one thing, the first step that you have to do, and that is an answer to many of you who are asking me stuff right here, is that one of the main reasons why many people find it hard to do that in high pressure speaking situations is because they don't breathe as much. They forget to breathe as much as they should. Remember that. Always focus on breathing a lot, breathing more and breathing more deeply. So, breathing more frequently and breathing more deeply. Both of these are incredibly important. If you don't breathe, it would be really hard for you to blend your words. In essence, it can look like this: you're inhaling from your nose and you're speaking over the exhalation. Just visualize it as the words are riding the airflow as you're speaking on the exhalation. They are linked, they are connected, and they are riding on the airflow. So you're inhaling and then you are connecting and linking your words together, you're blending your words together as if they are riding the airflow. The more you are doing that, the less you give yourself a chance to anticipate words. That is incredibly important. Now, one more thing before I move to the next point. Many people feel like blending your words means speaking fast. So many people feel like if I'm blending my words, I really need to speak like this so that I can blend my words. Yes, right here I was blending my words, but I was still a bit fast. And if I am speaking like this, what I am doing is that I'm extending my words. So, yes, I'm slowing down, but my speech is very, very choppy. I'm not blending my words. So, I'm giving myself a great amount of chance to get stuck. But if I'm doing both of that hand in hand, I'm extending out my words as well, I'm blending my words as well. That is where your speech starts to sound really smooth. So I can also extend and blend my words like this. So if you notice, I'm speaking slower, I'm extending out my words, but I'm still linking and connecting the words together. There is still no gap in between the words. A hint to if you are blending your words right is that if the sound keeps going and the sound doesn't stop while you're speaking in a single breath. Obviously, it would stop when you have to pause and breathe, but when you're saying that phrase, it is incredibly important to keep the sound going. The moment the sound stops, it means that, hey, I'm not linking my words right now. So it's really important to keep the sound going as you're speaking. See it like this: you're constantly breathing from your nose, you're speaking over the exhalation while extending and blending your words. Extending your words is helping you slow down your speech. What we talked about in the previous session, it is helping you develop a control over your speech, because if you go fast, people often feel like they are out of control. And by blending your words, you are making your speech in a very good amount of flow. So you're slowing down and you're flowing more with your speech. The more you do that, remember, the more you do that, the less you would anticipate words. The less you would anticipate words, the less you would get stuck. Now, it might not be very easy to do, especially at the start, if you are used to anticipating every other word or anticipating a lot of words. You might feel it very hard to keep linking your words together or to keep making your phrases longer. In that scenario, in that case, what you have to do is that you have to sit by yourself and constantly practice it a lot, over and over again. Sometimes I say it like this: it's often that you're trying to force yourself to keep the flow going. So you are speaking in a flow, you are connecting and linking your words together. Your mind is trying to do its best to stop you and anticipate the next word, because it is habitual of anticipating words, but you're still not listening to your mind and you're trying to keep the flow going while you're speaking. Your mind is trying to stop you, but you're still trying to keep the flow going. It happens with a lot of practice. Practice by yourself, practice in low pressure, practice in medium pressure, practice in high pressure. Some people feel like when I'm by myself or when I'm in low pressure, I don't really need to use it or I don't really need to practice it. I only need to do that while I'm in an interview, I'm in a presentation. Now it's incredibly important for me because it's a high stakes situation. I have to do that. Unfortunately, it does not work that way, because if you're not doing that in low pressure, it would be extremely hard to do that in high pressure. But when you're doing it by yourself as well, when you're doing it in low pressure, by low pressure I mean with friends and family, then in medium pressure, let's say speaking at your work, only then would you be able to use it in high pressure, or what you might consider high pressure for you. That might be presentations, that might be interviews, that might be important meetings, or whatever it might be. So, that is something which is incredibly important. Once again, let me get you all to a very, very interesting point right here. And believe me, this is very interesting. So, the more you're breathing, extending and blending, in fact, the more you pause, breathe, extend and blend, pause, breathe, extend and blend, the less you would anticipate. The more you keep doing that, the less that anticipation would get. But let's say while you're doing that, right in the moment, you just start to anticipate a word. Oh, there is a word that I have to say. I'm extending and blending, I'm going in a flow, but now you start to anticipate that word. You would often find that just by anticipating that word ahead, even before you get to that word, you might start to get a bit choppy with your speech. You might start to get stuck more because now you are worried about that word, and it impacts the rest of your speech as well. So the moment you start to anticipate, what do you usually do? As I mentioned at the start, you start to worry about it a lot. And you feel like, oh, I might get stuck on it. I hope I don't get stuck on it. Then you get onto that word, you either force it out or you make a face, you do something, you get stuck, you feel embarrassed, and then that happens even more, right? So that happens even more because you start to worry about it more. Now, what I want you to do is that if you start to anticipate a word right in the moment, I want you to extend out that word even more. And something that is very helpful in a situation like this is to make sure that you keep blending as a whole, because if you keep doing that, you wouldn't stop yourself just before that word, because if you stop yourself just before that word, then there might be a lot of worry. So you try your best to just keep going with the flow and keep that word blended with the words previous to it. But let's say you were speaking and now you are suddenly on that word and the flow stops. What do you do? There are various options. One thing that you can do is that go back a word or two and blend it again. Go back a word or two and blend it again. Or something that I find even more helpful is to add a few extra words and then blend that word with those words. I'll say that again. You're on that word, the flow has stopped, and now you're feeling like I have to say that word and I would get stuck on it. Add a few words and blend that word with those words. For example, let me give you an example. If I'm saying, let me just make up a sentence right now. So, for example, I'm anticipating a word and I am anticipating. So, I'm speaking and I'm feeling like I might get stuck on the word anticipating. And I was extending and blending, but unfortunately, my flow stopped just before that word. So, what are the options for you? So, for example, if I'm anticipating a word, what did I just do that? Just to right there. I went back a word or two if I am anticipating. So if I'm anticipating, I just said if I am right again and then blended the word anticipating with that word. Or if you add a few extra words and you blend it with that word. So for example, if I am, let's say, anticipating, what did I just do right there? I said, let's say anticipating. So if I am, let's say anticipating, but very important. Even if you add extra words, don't cut the airflow just before that word, because if you say, let's say, and then you stop again, you're back to where you started, right? So that is something that I don't want you to do. Try to blend that word with those two words. So to the brain, it sounds like I'm not saying anticipating. I'm saying, let's say anticipating. Like it's a one long word. Let's say anticipating. Let's say anticipating. Your mind says, I might not be able to say anticipating, but let's say anticipating is a new word. It sounds like a new word. I'm able to say that. So often what you're doing is that you are tricking your brain right there by letting yourself know that, hey, listen, I'm not saying anticipating, I'm saying let's say anticipating. Or I'm saying if I am anticipating. Once again, the more you breathe, extend and blend, the less you would anticipate. But I'm just explaining if you get to a word and the flow stops and now you are anticipating that word and now you're anticipating getting stuck. What do you just do? You go back a few words, blend it into it, or what you just do, add a few extra words and blend it with that word. Something that you can also do on words that you start to anticipate, you can emphasize on those words more, or you can extend out those words even more. Let me give another example. So if I am anticipating, what did I just do? I emphasized on that word. I extended that word, just like if I was highlighting that word. Try it out. It has a huge impact. So if I am anticipating, so you can blend it, go back and blend, add extra words and blend, and or extend or emphasize on that word, or it might also mean to over articulate on that word. So if I am anticipating, so whenever you start to do that, you find that you start to get stuck less and less, because now you have tools with you know what to do even when you anticipate. Likewise, when you're saying your name, for example, somebody mentioned right here that I have a hard time saying my name. Whoa, I had a real hard time saying my name. I used to dread situations where people would ask me my name. I would often remember that I would go into speaking situations. I'm speaking with someone and I'm like, I hope he does not ask me my name. I hope he does not ask me my name. And guess what? They would just ask me my name. And then I would just force that word out. Now, the one thing that is happening right here, before I say that, let me just hydrate myself a bit, is that you're so fixated on saying your name in one single way. And you're so fixated on saying your name by itself. What do I mean by that? So if I've historically struggled saying my name, and if somebody all of a sudden asks my name, of course I would anticipate that a lot. And if I try to say it by itself, of course I might get stuck. But if I realize that I can add a few extra words and blend my name with those words. For example, somebody asked my name. Instead of saying Farrukh, right at that instant, if I say, so I'm Farrukh, I'm Farrukh, what it's sounding like. I'm Farrukh, I'm Farrukh. Like I'm saying, I'm Farrukh. Or it's Farrukh. Yes, it's Farrukh. It's Farrukh. It's Farrukh. So I'm Farrukh. Yes, it's Farrukh. Yes, it's Farrukh. Yes, it's Farrukh. It's sounding like one single name. Yes, it's Farrukh. I'm Farrukh. This is Farrukh. It's Farrukh. Farrukh. It's Farrukh. It's Farrukh. What do you think is happening right here? When you know that you have a lot of ways of saying a single thing, it starts to take the pressure off of you. But when you're fixated on one single way, that I have to give my name right at that moment, that is where the pressure starts to come in, because then you're like, oh, I have to say my name. There's only one way to say it. What if I get stuck? But if in your mind you're like, I have so many ways of saying my name, so why am I worrying about that? I'll just say it's Farrukh. This is Farrukh. But once again, don't stop just before your name. If you have historically struggled with it, if you say this is, then stop, then you would still anticipate your name a lot. But if you're blending it with it, so this is Farrukh, I am Farrukh, it's Farrukh, it's not sounding like you're saying your name, it's sounding like you're saying it's Farrukh or this is Farrukh. So once again, when you realize this, that I have so many ways of saying my name, or I have so many ways of saying the name of this, I have so many ways of saying the name of that, it starts to take the pressure off of you. And when the pressure starts to get off of you, guess what starts to happen? Sometimes you might not even have to use another word, because the pressure is off of you. You are at ease now, you are relaxed now. So you might just be able to say that in that one single way. It has a huge, huge impact. Let yourself know that you have a lot of ways of saying a single thing. You can extend, you can blend, you can add extra words, blend, you can do whatever you want. You have so many ways of saying stuff. Don't let yourself fixate on one single way and let yourself worry about it, right? Just like I mentioned, when you start to worry about getting stuck more, you start to get stuck more. Likewise, even if you start to worry about anticipating more, let's say you start to worry about anticipating, you start to worry about anticipations. All right, so right now I'm speaking in a flow. I hope I don't anticipate. You're not directly worrying about getting stuck, but you're worrying about, I hope I don't anticipate. So, what would that do? The moment you say that, I hope I don't anticipate, your mind would be like, what is anticipation? Okay, so let's anticipate to see what it is. And then you would start anticipating more. Just know that you don't have to worry about anticipations, because let yourself know that, hey, the more I'm breathing, extending, and blending, the less I would anticipate. But let's say, even if I do anticipate, what's there to worry about? I can just extend on that word. I can just blend that word with the previous words. I can add extra words and blend that word with those words. I'll just do whatever I want, and then I'll keep flowing with my speech. So, why am I worrying about anticipations? If I anticipate, I'll do this. When you say this to yourself, that anticipation starts to lose its power, because you're no longer worried about it. You're no longer worried about it because you know that even if it happens, even if anticipation happens, I know what to do. I can just extend, I can just blend, I can do this, and I can keep going. And once that anticipation takes the pressure off of you, once you're no longer worried about anticipating, or once you're no longer worried about that anticipation, what starts to happen? That anticipation starts to move away. You don't have to let yourself know that, I hope I don't anticipate. Just say to yourself that even if I anticipate, that's fine. Some clients just speak to me in our one on one meetings and they say, I'm still anticipating a few words. So I ask them, are you worrying about anticipating? They say, yes. That is the reason why you're anticipating words. Don't need to worry about it. You know what to do. So just use one way and keep flowing with your speech. Now, let's say even if you were pausing, breathing, extending, and blending, when you were about to anticipate a lot or get stuck, you just used the way you move forward. But let's say at a point you just got stuck. Now what to do? Oh, I was using all of this. Now Farrukh said, Michael said, do this, but I used all of this and I got stuck. So if you would say that to me, I wouldn't worry about that. Because just like I mentioned, everybody in this world gets stuck. Don't anticipate or don't strive for perfection. Don't strive for 100% fluency on your speech. Nobody's speech is 100% fluent. Everybody gets stuck from time to time. Just knowing this fact, when you get stuck, you won't worry about it. You won't be like, oh, no, I just got stuck again. What if it happens again? I was using this and I still got stuck. So what? You got stuck. Everybody gets stuck. Other people who don't identify themselves as stuttering, as stutterers, stammerers, or something, they don't worry about it when they get stuck. And that is why it does not have an impact on them. When it does not have an impact on them, they don't worry about it. When they don't worry about it, they don't anticipate. When they don't anticipate, they don't get stuck. So once you start to take care of that anticipation, that getting stuck starts to take care of itself. Even I think, got a bit stuck on one or two occasions inside the session. You did not see it because I just kept flowing with my speech. It's fine to get stuck. It's okay to get stuck. Once you know that it's okay to get stuck, what do you think would happen? You would no longer be worried that what if you get stuck. So just imagine yourself at that place. You're no longer worried about anticipations. You're no longer worried about getting stuck. And when you're no longer worried about it, you no longer would focus on it. And that is where it starts to happen less and less. You still might get stuck. Understand that it's part of the process. Just like Anya mentioned inside the chat box, we often look at it like a bump in the road. I'm working on my speech. I'm on the road to smooth and excellent speech. I just got stuck. It was a bump in that road. It does not get me off the road. All right, I face that bump, but am I off the road because of that bump? No, I'm still on that road. I just keep flowing with my speech. Even if you want to look back, you can look at it like this. All right, I think I got stuck because I wasn't speaking slow. I was going very, very fast, which made me get stuck. Also, I think that I wasn't blending my words. I think I was speaking word by word. All right, so I would not do that once again. Let's say if you're on a highway, you experience a bump, you don't just keep going over it again and again. Get out of the car. Oh, there's a bump right here again. I again got on a bump. You move your car back, then you move your car in front of it again, then you move it back. Why it's happening again, all of that, you won't do that, right? So why do we do that? Or why should we do that while we're speaking? Don't need to do that. Just look at it like a small bump in the road and just look at it in terms of the fact that, hey, everybody in this world gets stuck. That's totally fine. That's completely fine. I would say that even if you get stuck, don't show it off. Don't force out a word. Like, don't do something like this or that. Think of your speech like water. Water keeps flowing. Even if there is a hindrance, water wouldn't stop. It would flow from the right side, it would flow from the left side, it would flow over it would flow beneath it. It would do whatever it needs to do, but it just keeps flowing. So don't let yourself stop, worry, anticipate more, and get stuck. I'll say another thing related to it. Let's say, although that won't happen 99% of the times, but let's say, what if you start to worry about, hey, even if I extend right here, even if I blend right here, I think that I would still get stuck. Or you are trying it and you're still feeling like you're getting stuck or that you might get stuck, then what to do? Just change the way you say it. You can even change the word. That should be the last case scenario, but also keep that as an option. You might say, oh, Farrukh, you are just having to teach us wrong stuff. These are bad habits to change words, to change what we are saying. The point is not words. Just like I explained at the start of the session, your problem is not with a specific word. You just have to show your brain that you're speaking smoothly more and more. You just have to give yourself more and more speaking situations where you are speaking smoothly. And once you keep doing that, your mind stops worrying about words. And when it stops worrying about words, the words start to take care of themselves. Many people do this mistake. I don't want you to do this. Don't work on specific words. I have to work on saying this word. I have to work on saying that word. Work on your speech as a whole. I guarantee the words would just take care of themselves. It's incredibly important. Also, everything that I just talked about, blending your name, doing this, doing that, this is not something that you have to do all your life. Right now, if someone just comes up to me and asks me my name, I can just say Farrukh, or I can say this is Farrukh. It's Farrukh. I can do whatever I want because now I have built a new speaking style out of it. So once you use something, let's say blending of words or extending of words, and the more you speak smoothly using that, the more successful speaking opportunities that you accumulate in your mind, in your brain, of speaking in that situation, of saying that word, of saying those words, you stop worrying about it because now your mind says we are able to say it successfully. So let's stop worrying about it. And when you stop worrying about it, you no longer need to use a way to say something. You can just say it by itself. You can do whatever you want. So that is something which is incredibly important. Don't feel like I have to do what Farrukh is saying right here for my whole life. No, you don't have to do it for your whole life. Once you keep doing it over and over again, you would build a habit out of it. Right now, I'm not extending, or let me say this, I'm not focusing on extending, or I'm not focused on blending, or I have to use my hands like this, or facial expressions like this, or this like that, or that like that. It is automatic. But why is it automatic? Because I did the things that I needed to achieve this over and over and over and over again. Constant repetition over time. Daily listening to the audios inside the system, working on my speech every single day, working on the free flow speaking exercise. If you guys are inside the system, you know what this would mean. that helps you to link your words, that helps you to blend your words, and that helps you to get into the habit of doing that. Constantly practicing modeling. The more I kept doing that, eventually it became a habit, and now it happens on its own. But it only happens when you keep doing it consistently over a period of time. So I would just mention a few more points, some important points before that. Does anybody have something to mention right here? So far, we talked about pausing, breathing, extending, and blending, and what to do when you are anticipating, what you need to do right there, how to stop worrying about getting stuck, how to stop worrying about anticipations. Now, what do I want you to do? One thing that I want you to do is start to practice blending your words a lot. Just like I said, it's almost like you are forcing yourself to keep going when your mind, when your brain wants you to stop. You're trying to force yourself to keep going. So sit with yourself and practice blending your words. Practice the free flow speaking exercise, right? I would just give you a very short version of it. One way that you can practice it is that sit by yourself, pick something to speak about. Let's say I picked to speak about my hobby. Let's say I pick to speak about my work, my plans for the next week, my plans for the next day, or whatever it is. And what I just plan to do is that I plan to practice blending my words. So, what I would do is that I would breathe and speak and speak and speak while blending my words. So, you're breathing, extending, and blending your words, pausing, breathing, extending, and blending your words. You constantly practice that while you are by yourself. For example, let me show you an example. I'm speaking about some of my plans for the next day. All right, so right now, what I'm doing is that I'm speaking about some of my plans for the next day. So if you notice, what I just did is that I took an air in, and I continuously spoke while blending and connecting my words together. When I felt like I need to breathe in again, I had another breath, and then again, what I did is that I just kept speaking in a flow. So, what I'm doing is that I'm practicing breathing, and then I'm extending my words, and then I'm constantly trying to link my words together as I'm speaking. So, practice that over and over and over and over again. If you know the free flow speaking exercise, practice that over and over again. If you don't know that, I would recommend getting inside the system, or we could do a separate webinar on that as well, because that would take some time. But what you can also do is that just sit by yourself and practice speaking while connecting your words together, while extending your words. So you sit, pick something to speak about, and then you breathe, extend, and blend. Then you pause again, breathe, inhale from your nose, then speak over the exhalation while extending and blending your words. How much should you do the practice? I would recommend at least do 15 minutes to half an hour. So, what we recommend to our clients is a lot of practice of modeling, a lot of practice of free flow speaking or breathing, extending, and blending, and daily listening to the audios and videos inside the speech system. Michael told me that the reason he named the system the Pro90d Speech System is that 90 minutes for 90 days, 1.5 hour practice for 90 days. You don't need to necessarily do that. Even 1 hour would sound good. 45 minutes to an hour is also a sweet spot that you can work out, but don't do less than that. And you don't need to necessarily do all of the practice in one go, right at one instant. You can just divide your practice time. Some in the morning, some in the afternoon, some in the evening, some at night. And you can just sprinkle your practice times all day long. 5 minutes there, 15 minutes there, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes there. As a whole, you would find that you would make up an hour. You would make up 45 minutes to an hour. Audio listening, video watching is also something that you can do while you're driving, while you're exercising, or whatever else that you might be doing. Some people do a mistake. All day long, they would speak in their old speaking style. At night, they would work on their speech, they would practice their new speaking style, and then go to sleep. And then the next day, they would do the same thing. That is not how I would recommend doing it. Try to sprinkle your practices all day long. You would not get bored of it. Another advantage is that the whole day you would be in your new speaking style mode because you would know that I have just recently practiced my speech 5 minutes ago, 6 minutes ago. So now I'm speaking to my boss, I'm speaking to someone, and I am using my new speaking style. I'm breathing, extending, and blending, or I'm modeling, or I'm doing whatever that I need to do. Very, 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 very important. Try to be consistent. Even on days where you feel like you have a lot of work, I can't do this, I can't do that, just do some of it. Even on days where you find that you do not have a lot of time, although you do, I'm sure, at least do some practice. At least find 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. At least do that so that you maintain your consistency. Working on your speech is just like working out on your physique. If you don't work out the whole week, you just work out one day for 5 hours, and the rest of the week you do nothing, you wouldn't see a change in your physique. But even if you're doing half an hour or an hour every single day, that is where you would start to see big, big change in your speech. So from today, start practicing breathing, extending, and blending. Start practicing it by yourself. Start using it in low pressure, medium pressure, high pressure. Even when your mind says you might get stuck or you might anticipate, let yourself know that, hey, I would just extend, I would just blend and move forward with my speech. I would just flow with my speech like water. Even if I get stuck, that's fine because everybody might get stuck. It's okay to get stuck. It would just be a small bump in the road. It would not get me off the road. When you say that to yourself, you worry less about worrying. That is a very important point. You worry less about worrying. Now, there is worrying and there is worrying about worrying. I hope I don't worry about my speech. So, that is worrying about worrying. But the more you know that even if I worry, even if I anticipate, I don't need to be a lot focused on it because I can just extend, blend, and move forward with my speech. That is where worry, anticipation, and everything starts to lose its power. All right. So now we'll try to get into most of the questions right here. And please feel free, whatever you want to ask me right here, like literally whatever you want to ask me right here in the session. I also wanted to talk about modeling in this session, but I think that might take more time. And I would like to go a lot more in deeply into the aspect and the topic of modeling. So I would save another webinar for that. But whatever you want to ask me, not only related to this webinar, related to whatever that you might want to ask, please feel free to ask that to me right here. And while you are writing down your comments or whatever you might want to ask me, I would just let you know that these days we are also running a sale on my one-on-one speech coaching. Excuse me, on my one-on-one speech coaching that would end by this Sunday. So this sale would end by this Sunday. So if you sign up before Sunday, you would have an opportunity to save more because that's a sale. All the stuff that I just talked about, you can do it with yourself as well. You can do it with the self-study course as well. But you can also do it with a coach like Michael or myself. A coach with his own experience and with the experience of working with clients all around the world knows exactly what would work for you. There is a lot of stuff inside the system. Sometimes the people are not sure, how do I focus on this right now? How do I focus on that right now? or what is the most important thing for me to focus on right now. But when you have a coach, he gives you one pinpointed focus. This is what you need to focus on right now. All right, after some time, you're good on this, let's shift the focus towards that. You're good on that, let's shift the focus towards that. The process as a whole makes it a lot faster and easier to reach where you have to reach. We often find that working with a coach, you can often get to where you want at least 10 times faster than you can working by yourself. Why? Because of pinpointed focus, because of accountability. You know that I have a meeting with my coach the next week, the next day, I have to work on my speech. Else, if you're working on your speech by yourself, you might be very excited. You're working on your speech at the start. After some time, work might get in the way, life gets in the way, and you might stop working on your speech. That is where your speech might start to slip down. So your coach keeps you accountable, he keeps you encouraged. He lets you know that, hey, even after starting to work on your speech, if you're experiencing a few failures, that is totally all right. That is totally fine. That does not mean that it is not working for you. It just means that it is taking its time, because you have struggled with your speech for a long time. If you have struggled with it for such a long time, just give yourself some time. It takes time, and it's good that it takes time because it builds a really, really solid foundation after that. You get to the speaking style that you always wanted to have. If you're here right now and you want to get to here, the journey doesn't look like this, it looks like this. It's up and down, it's up and down, it's up and down, but if you see, the overall movement is always in the upward direction. As long as you consistently keep working on your speech, because the next high is always higher than the previous high. Incredibly important. So, working with a coach, you can save a lot of time working on your speech. Everything that I just talked about, we practice that inside our sessions. So, you would get that to practice with me. I would give you the pinpointed focus on your speech. That is exactly what I want you to do for this week, for these 2 weeks. And that is what makes you reach by there. With a coach, you might reach to where you want within a period of 3 to 4 months. If you're working by yourself, it might take you longer. I'm not saying you can't do that. By working by yourself, you can absolutely, absolutely do that. People have done that. But it's generally the case that working with a coach, it makes it a lot faster because of everything that I just talked about. It's not only because of speech, or it's not only related to speech, but it's related to other things in life. Having a coach makes it quite faster. So if you want that, I have left a link. I'll just leave a link inside the chat box, and you'll also be able to find that link inside the interactions on the call to action. All right. And I'll also go ahead and share the link to my page right here. You can see all of the reviews and everything, and you would find the sale on that page. And if, first of all, you want to book a call with me just to see if the coaching would be a good fit for you, if you have something extra to ask me before you start to go ahead with the coaching, only if you want to, only if you're ready for it. Not everyone is. Sometimes we meet with people inside the session, we just let them know that right now you might not be a good candidate for the coaching, right? So if you are ready for it, if you want that, if you want yourself to be with someone to help you with the process, you can also book your free assessment session with me where we can assess your speech and we can see if coaching is a good fit for you, and whatever you want to ask me, you can ask me right there. Also, I am just leaving my email right here as well. So any questions that you might have after the webinar, related to the webinar or even related to something else, feel free to write down and email to me on my email address. So you can reach out to me on my email address as well, and you can ask whatever you want related to this webinar, related to the coaching, or something else that you might have. All right. I would leave you by saying one very important thing before I get to a few answers. If you have to ask me something, start to disassociate yourself with stuttering, stammering, blocking. From now on, stop saying that I stutter, stop saying that I stammer, stop saying that I block, or even stop saying that I blocked on that word, or I stammered, or I stuttered on that word. The more you're saying that, the more constantly you are associating yourself with the aspect of stuttering, with the aspect of stammering, and the more you do that, the more it would impact you and your speech, and the more your speech would spiral down. Even if you have to say something like that, you can say that I just got stuck on that word. That does not have a lot of impact. Why? Because just that I mentioned, everybody might get stuck. It's okay to get stuck. When you know that, you're not associating yourself with stuttering or stammering now. You just say that I got stuck on that word, or sometimes I might just get stuck. That's fine. But don't use the word stuttering, stammering, blocking. Incredibly important. Incredibly important. I can't leave any more emphasis on this. If you keep working on your speech, if you keep doing all the work, but if you still associate yourself with these words, it would have an impact on your speech. So stop associating yourself with this at all. All right. So that is very important. Let's see what we have right here. All right. So Daniel, towards the start, asked, "Do you breathe from your diaphragm?" Yeah, I would recommend breathing from your diaphragm because that allows for a deeper breath. Just like I mentioned, it's important to breathe more deeply as well, more frequently as well. So when you're breathing by your diaphragm, it would be easier, a lot easier to breathe more deeply. Make sure that you're breathing deeply. If you need to use your diaphragm for that, by all means do that. I also do that. But make sure that you're inhaling from your nose and you're speaking over the exhalation. And while you're doing that, you're extending and blending your words as you're speaking. Very, very important. All right. Vusa. I also get stuck when in a state of excitement when talking to friends. This leads me to speaking too fast, not pausing enough, etc., etc., etc. Why does excitement lead to getting stuck? Very good question. Excitement doesn't directly lead to getting stuck. Excitement often leads to speaking fast. And often, when people speak fast, they might start to lose control over their speech, and that might make them get stuck. So, I won't say that don't get excited. Whenever you're excited, that's fine. But instead of using that excitement to make your speech fast, use that excitement to do something else. Use that excitement to use more facial expressions, to use more hand gestures, to inflect more as you're speaking, just like we talked about inside the last session. Let me give you an example. So, for example, if I'm very excited right now, I might be speaking like this, but that might make me get stuck because I'm going really fast. But if I'm very, very excited right now, I can also speak like this. So I'm speaking in full excitement, but I'm not speaking fast because of that excitement. I'm showing that excitement, or I'm portraying that excitement, or I'm letting that excitement out by inflecting more, by emphasizing more facial expressions, more hand gestures. So this would not lead you to speak fast. Using your excitement to do something else. Make sure that you are on the slower side of speaking while you're working on your speech. It's very, 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 very important. If you start to speak fast, you would often find that you might start to lose control over your speech. Right now, because of having worked on my speech for such a long time, if I want, I can speak fast like this as well. I can speak slow like this as well. And more than often, I will speak dynamically, where some phrases I would say them slow, and some phrases I might say them a little fast. It makes your speech more dynamic, more interesting. But while you're working on your speech, it's really important to work on slowing down your speech, to be on the slower side of speaking while you're working on your speech. If you're used to speaking very fast, remind yourself to super slow down your speech. Not only slow down, but super slow down your speech. Because you're on one extreme, focusing on speaking slow might still keep you towards the faster side. But if you're on one extreme and you speak really fast, and if you focus on the other extreme of speaking really slow, you would lie somewhere in between. So it's very important to be on the slow side. I hope I answered that. All right. Thank you for the comments. Thank you, Farrukh. This was beneficial. We'll try to follow everything that you recommended consistently. Yeah, absolutely. You should do that. You're a great public speaker. Thank you. I'm very grateful to hear that. Tell us a little more about modeling. So let's keep another webinar for modeling, because modeling is also very important and a very deep concept. I can just speak about it a bit right here and just end the webinar, but that won't make a lot of sense. So I would like to do another webinar on that. I thought I could do that right here in the session, but I did not want to miss something out from the other stuff. So let's keep it for another session so that I get into a lot of detail. But if you want something necessarily right now, just leave an email to me on my email address, and I have videos on modeling on my YouTube channel. I'll send that over to you, right? Or I'll just explain that on the email, or I'll do something like that. We'll try to do a webinar next Wednesday or next to next Wednesday on modeling, right? So we'll do something like this. Oh yes, hand gestures are great, but what if our hands are busy? Example, if we are driving or carrying a baby. Yeah, I understand. Often you could find to at least use a hand. If you're not using both of your hands, let's say if you're speaking on phone and you're holding the phone in one hand, you can use the other hand while you're speaking. It helps you a lot with the flow of your speech, the flow that we were just talking about. So use your hands slow, don't use them fast, because if you use them fast, it might make you speak fast as well. So use your hands and use them slow. Try to find a way to at least use one of your hands while speaking. That would help you a lot. Use it slow, and yeah, try to at least use a hand. If you feel like in some case scenario both of your hands are busy, I would say to do something else. Use more facial expressions. Move around a little if you're standing, but don't try to be stiff or be at one place while you're speaking, holding the anxiety and stiffness. But what you want to do is just release that excitement in a way that you're using and utilizing your new speaking style. So if you can't find a way to use both of your hands, use at least one hand. And even if you can't do that, find other ways to move around or facial expressions and everything. But facial expressions is something that I still want you to do, whether or not you're using your hands. It's a combination. Facial expressions, hand gestures, and everything. Like we often say, when you're speaking, it should not just be you speaking, but your whole body and your whole self speaking. All right? Mirella, all rules, extending, blending, articulations, body language, facial expressions are great for presenting, acting, reading. What about conversations? We're not able to exaggerate because friends or colleagues or supervisors think we are weird. What should we do in real daily conversation? Very, very good point. So, when you're in a conversation, see it like this. Look at it like a dial. When you're giving a presentation, that dial might be up at 9 or 10 or something. What's that dial? The dial of your new speaking style. So if you're doing a presentation, you can just turn that dial up to 9 or 10 or something. But when you're speaking in a conversation, don't get that dial off to 0. You can get that dial down to 3, 4 or something, but don't get it off to 0. Let me show you by an example. So, for example, if I'm doing a presentation, I would mostly be speaking like this. I would be explaining stuff and doing whatever that I need to do. Right here, I was using more facial expressions, more hand gestures, right? I was inflecting more, extending more, emphasizing more. Now, let me give you an example when I'm just speaking in a one on one conversation. So, for example, when I'm speaking in a one on one conversation, what I would often do is that I would still extend, I would still blend, but now the dial is not that up. I've not turned that dial down. I'm still using my new speaking style, but maybe I'm inflecting a bit less. I am emphasizing a bit less, but I'm still extending and blending the same. I'm still breathing, extending, and blending the same, right? Sometimes you might feel like it might sound weird. Am I sounding weird right now? I'm extending, I'm blending, I'm doing everything that I need to do. Often we find that it feels weird because we are not used to doing it. Something that you're not used to doing, you would feel weird doing that. But once you do that for some time, it would stop feeling weird. And one thing that we often say, if you're feeling weird, if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, it means that you're using your new speaking style. If you're not feeling weird, if you're not feeling uncomfortable, it means that you're not using your new speaking style. Aha, that's a hint. If you're not feeling weird, probably you're not using your new speaking style. So you should feel a bit uncomfortable again. Not because it's uncomfortable or weird, just because you're not used to it. When you get used to it, then you would start to enjoy your speaking conversations and it would no longer feel weird. And if you still feel that it would be weird, it would be this, it would be that, ask yourself, what's more weird? Is it more weird to get stuck? Or is it more weird to speak slow and speak using your new speaking style? Now you can select whatever you think is less weird. I think it's more weird to get stuck, force outwards, make faces, not knowing what you have to say, not be able to say what you have to say, and then spiraling down and down and down and down with your speech, right? But using your new speaking style, although you would feel that I'm speaking professionally, it would feel a bit uncomfortable, but it is making you speak smoothly and you are not feeling weird. I'm saying that again and again because it is weird. You might just be feeling weird because you're not used to it. And you should feel a bit uncomfortable and weird, especially at the start. If you're not feeling that way, it means that you're not using your new speaking style. So in short, in conversations, turn that dial down a bit. Like you don't have to speak like this in a conversation, so you can speak like this in a conversation, but still extend and blend your words. So you're turning the dial down, but it's not zero. Zero means you're back to using your word speaking style. So you don't have to do that. Every speaking opportunity is practice opportunity. Keep using your new speaking style every time you open your mouth to speak. I hope that makes sense. All right, so we'll just go ahead and wrap up in a few. Once again, if you want to work one on one with me, if you are really tired of figuring this out on your own, and you're not sure what to do forward, how to move ahead, I can help you move much, much faster than you can do by yourself. And if you want to save a few dollars as well, we have a sale going down right there that's valid till Sunday. So you can sign up for that sale. If before that you want to book a one on one session with me, ask me more stuff about the coaching and stuff. How might it work out? I can assess your speech. If you want that session before we start working together, we can also do that. If you have any other questions, you can let me know on my email address once again, right? So somebody asked about the recording for this session. Yeah, we'll try to get out the recording to you guys as well for this session. And I think, yeah, we spoke about everything else. So if there is nothing else, we'll just wrap up in a few. I'm very grateful for you all being here and for you all to listen to me. And I hope you had a fun time in this session. I had a real fun time speaking with everybody or seeing you people, although I did not see you, but I could still see your names. So we had a real fun time doing that. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I hope you learned something from it as well. Keep implementing it, keep taking your speech and your life towards the next level. And believe me, you can do it and you will do it. You'll become an amazing and excellent speaker. All right. So I hope to see you guys very soon in some of the other webinars, in another YouTube live, in the Speech Masters, or whatever, or working one on one with me. And I wish you the best of luck with everything. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Thank you.